Park, and we are the whole digital section of the GA in Crow Park. So while you might think that there's a large team of people working on the online channels and internally, there's not. There's really just us two, and then we've contributors, of course, but we look after everything. So I've been with the GA 8 years this week. And so I'm digital manager. I look after all of the channels. So everything to do with websites, social media, GA Now clips, some broadcast stuff comes under my remit as well. Big Crean and Crow Park, anything that plugs in or has a digital element to it falls under my remit. And Niamh is our social media coordinator, so she looks after the day-to-day running of our social media channels. I don't need to tell you to keep your mics on mute again, but if you do have any questions as we go through the session, stick them in the chat option. Unfortunately, we don't have a huge amount of time with a lot of content to get through. So I guess whatever time we have at the end to give to the Q&A, we will absolutely do that. And as I say in this slide here, whatever we don't cover, we will find a way to cover. So the aim of the next 90 minutes is not to go through every single art and part of all the things that you will touch upon as in your role as PRO or as the person who's looking after digital channels within your club. That's not what we're trying to achieve. What we want to achieve is just to give you an introduction to the digital elements of the role, to dispel the myths around things being very difficult to do, it being very laborious. And we just want you to see what's possible, what's not, and really, really important, how you can manage your time and manage people's expectations. So I'm so conscious of the fact that we're in a very privileged position. We get to do this all day, every day, and this is our jobs. You guys are out working, minding kids, coming home making dinners, training teams, doing all that stuff, and you're the PRO. And it's something that we're really, really conscious of. And as much as we can, we try to find ways to make this all a little bit more easy to do. So hopefully over the next while, that's what you will pick up and you will really feel empowered and, you know, excited leaving this session, and you'll be happy and comfortable going about your day-to-day business in the role going forward. So you're the voice of your club now, no pressure. So whether you're PRO or whether you are the anointed one who's been handed the Facebook and Twitter and website logins, it's a really big job and a really big responsibility, but it's a great one. Like, it's a lovely role to have. A lot of the time people think the PRO role and and even worse, the digital parts of it, like to be handed over them is a nightmare, but it's not. It's brilliant. And you know, it's changed so much, and the role of PRO has changed so much in the last, well, every day it's certainly changed, but in the last 2, 3, 5, 10 years, 10 years ago it didn't exist. And so while there's so much additional work to be done, there's also the original traditional elements of the role, but so many of them have also taken on a digital twist that communications is nearly now all encompassing, and that it's digital and it's traditional. So somebody's got their mic on, so sorry. Let me just check. Sounds like someone who's going out the door, if that helps. So the basics, the big three, your digital remit. So what you will be looking after in your role, and when I say PRO, I'm not meaning to omit anyone who's not the PRO, but is the one who's been given these jobs. Tonight you're a PRO, for language and ease purposes. So what you're going to be looking after is your website, your club social media accounts, and email addresses. Something that don't seem that sexy and exciting, but actually pretty important. So if you've just come into this role in the last weeks or last couple of months, the first thing to do is make sure you've access to that PRO email address, because that is how we will communicate with you from GA centrally, from the provinces, and from your your county boards. There's so much great stuff that comes into that email address, between club newsletter to really important correspondence as well. So make sure you're set up on that. Make sure also that everyone within your club who is entitled to an email address has it and is using it, because they're going to be getting all those really important emails as well. And they will also be getting stuff that's bespoke to their role too. So the finance department will be emailing the treasurer, and Tom Ryan's office will be emailing the chair or the secretary or everybody. If you're not sure about how to get logged into your email, drop an email, or if you're in and they're not, you can drop an email to mail support. The address is there, and you can just let them know. So you, as the PRO, have authority to get password resets for anyone else within your club. If you're locked out of your email address, you just go directly to your county board and they will be able to ask that for you. It's just for security reasons. Then, speaking of security and safety and access, make sure that you have all the passwords to your club's website login and all the social media accounts as well. So get those, change the passwords, and make sure only the people who are working with you on your digital team have access to those accounts. There have been cases in the past, not too many thankfully, but there have been cases where, you know, former officers kept on to the login details and took over channels, kept the Twitter account for themselves. So we want to avoid that happening ever again, and that's the best way to do it. Social media guidelines then. Before you make a single post, make sure you're familiar with the social media guidelines and you've read them cover to cover. There's not that many pages. We'll share them with you after this presentation, but they're there for you for a reason. They'll keep you safe and they'll help you to keep everybody else safe as well. Speaking of, making sure people know who you are. It's so important. It's really important that everybody in your club knows who the PRO or the person doing the weekend tweets are at matches, or whoever's looking after different channels, for instance. And one thing that's really a great start and a great, you know, started me to go on, have a chat with coaches and mentors within the club and get an idea of what's going on in their schedules and how it makes sense for you to talk about what it is. So whether it's sending out a weekly reminder of, you know, under-8s training at 7:30 every Wednesday, you'll know that's the case until they have to tell you otherwise. And it allows you to get into a bit of a routine, and that actually saves time. You can also, you know, plan ahead and schedule in things within the accounts as well. But just have those conversations and set up a bit of a nice regular schedule for yourself. So on Monday, this is what I do. On Tuesday, that's what I do. And on Wednesday, that's what I do. Or maybe I only do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And this is what we're going to do at the weekend. So getting that bit of shape, getting that bit of routine, it makes it feel an awful lot easier. What also makes it feel an awful lot easier is when you've got some people to help you. So there's going to be times when this job, in particular the social media and digital side of it, is just too much for one person to do. And there was a time when we used to preach, don't let anybody other than the PRO have access to all the accounts. That's not manageable. So you can make it manageable. You can gather up a few people, trusted people, who understand the remit and are willing to give you a dig out. So, you know, you could, you know, unless you've mastered the skill of omnipresence, you can only be in one place at one time, and we all know that games don't all happen in the one place at the one time. So if you have people out who are dotted around different pitches around on a Saturday or a Sunday, you can give an experience to people at home like you are everywhere, because you've got those reports coming in from everywhere. So many hands make light work. Please do remember that. Not just the people within your own club who are there to help you, there are other people as well. Your county PRO is your leader. They are going to be of such a great help to you, and I can't emphasize enough about really getting to know them, and you know, they want to help. They are in direct contact with us very regularly, and for you to have that direct contact with them as regularly as you need is a great resource, because you're also getting any information and knowledge that we pass down to them as well. So get to know your county PRO. They will be your first port of call if anything goes wrong, if you're not sure about something, if there's a safety issue or security issue, or just anything you are not so sure about doing within your role. Get onto the county PRO. They'll be able to help on most things that you need. The provincial PRO, think of it like a bit of a stepping stone. Provincial PRO is your next port of call. If again there's something that the county PRO isn't able to help you with, they will guide you to the provincial PRO, or they may well guide you to speak with us directly. In the event that you are ever not comfortable speaking with your county or your provincial PRO, our door is always open. It's not a thing of I've had to tick all the boxes to get through, or you should ever feel afraid to drop us an email. Don't. That's what we're here for. So if there's ever anything, like I said, that feels just that bit too big, or you just need to get it dealt with quickly, please do come to us. So now that you're in this job, and for a lot of you, this might be your first real experience with dealing with social media accounts, dealing with websites. You've never logged in. You never knew actually how stuff got on websites before, and now you're going to be the person putting the stuff there. Can seem quite daunting, and so can a lot of the terminology that you will hear along the way. But don't be phased. Most of it is just, I don't know, things to make things seem fancier than they are. And I'm going to give you an example of some of them. Over the term of you being in position, you're going to hear all of these phrases like channel and assets and hashtags and shares and engagements. Don't feel like I'm rushing through this. This is available for you to take home. But everything that you hear is just essentially another way of saying something that's pretty obvious. And I think when you look in the right hand column, you're going to see, oh yeah, I get that. So we say channel, it just means whatever it is we're talking about. We'll talk about assets. So an asset is anything. It's a video or it's a picture, but we call it an asset. So myths dispelled. There's not too much in that you won't be able to get your head around. Doesn't mean you have to use the phrases, but at least you'll know what they are when people are talking about them. And particularly if you're going about kind of trying to educate yourself a little bit further in any of this stuff, you'll see those words pop up. Now, there's Google, of course. You can Google it to your heart's content. But there's a little starter pack for you. So, your club website. Over the last years of the social media explosion, people have kind of thought, oh, website. Sure, I don't need to update the website because I can just update Facebook. And we've been preaching for a little while, and we're preaching it a lot more at the moment around the importance of having a website and keeping it up to date. And the easiest analogy I can use is the difference between renting and buying. We all don't know what's going to happen with Facebook, but we know what's going to happen with your website because you are the controller of that. So and as we've seen, I think this is the biggest thing, as we've seen over the last couple of years between information security breaches and what these companies are holding on people in terms of personal information and data, there's been a shift in terms of the numbers of people certainly on the accounts and how they work. And even how they work in terms of what they let you see. So I'm not talking fake news here. I'm talking about they essentially dictate how many messages from different accounts you will see in your feeds and people will see from you. So I can guarantee you that we post an awful lot more on our Facebook and Twitter and Instagram accounts than you actually see directly on your phones or on your computers or however you're looking. And if you go into the account directly, you'll see there's a lot more. So that's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of control that we don't have over them. We can't, if Facebook says tomorrow that they're going to shut down, we can't stop them. We can't do an awful lot, but we can with websites. So it's so important to keep your website up to date. It's really important that it's the hub. It is the one point of truth for your club. It's the place where people know that I will absolutely get the fixtures there, because they're automatically coming in through a feed and you don't really have to do anything. But they don't know that. They just say, God, that's a great website because the fixtures are always on it. Same with news, same with reports, information on training, all that kind of stuff. So it's great to keep it up to date, and it's really important to keep it nice and fresh and get people coming to it. So when you're going about your plans, think website first. Have I updated the website with that? And then think about your social media accounts. I know it might be a little bit of a shift from what you've been doing potentially, or how you've seen your club accounts being run, but try to get into that mindset, even for certain things, match reports or training updates or whatever's important to you within your club at a certain time. Try to think website first. If you're considering changing website, and this is something that we're working on with a company called GAALearning Design, who a lot of you will see that some of the peers within your counties for sure, and then also your counties and all 4 provinces are using this website template. So it's essentially a one size fits all, except everything is your own. It's cookie cutter in a really great way. So the guys in GAALearning Design have built this very accessible, very user-friendly website that is also very easy to move across to if you are considering it. And when I say it's very good value for money, it's too good, and it will remain too good. That's not going to change. So if you are thinking about a change, clubandcounty.com is the website dedicated specifically to that. It's not the GAA's website, but it's the one and only that we now endorse and encourage people to use, because it's very, very powerful. Even when it comes to the likes of, your fixture speeds, etc., they're all in there. Results, great for sponsorship and fundraising as well. So have a look if you're not already familiar and you're in the market. So I'm going to hand over to Niamh, and she's going to take you through our social media elements.
Yes, Lisa.
Do you want to take control of this, Niamh, or how do you want to go about it?
I don't mind. Can I request control here, or do you want to just flick through the slides as I go through them?
I'll be your slide person.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I have a feeling you'll kind of naturally know where I'm going with it anyway. Thanks, Lisa. So I'm going to take you through social media in a club, the different channels, and the audiences as well who live on each channel. So social media in a club. You are the voice of your club, offline and online. Your main objective is to promote the club activities within the club, the local community, county, and further afield. This includes managing social media channels, and as Lisa mentioned, a team if possible. Being the club's official voice online means that you're responsible for the social media outputs. As Lisa mentioned already, the GAA have a social media policy and guidelines document that will go through this in much more detail. It is so important that you read this. We can't say it enough how important it is that you read this page to page. And it's not just for you, it's for everybody. And when I say that, I don't just mean everyone by club officers or everybody who's involved directly in the club. I mean everybody in the club who is going to comment or post online about the club. We'll supply you with a full version of this after the presentation, and also we will give you a go-to guide so that you can put it on your club notice board. Make sure to save it, print it out, and also please share the full document with all of your members and put it everywhere. It's also important that you would have it on your website as well. Make sure it has a place in your website that it's available to everybody to go and find it and download it, at any stage that they want to access it. So all media is social in the GAA. Sport is social. The GAA community is social. Everything that we do is social. Here we're going to look at a little closer at the uses of social media. So communication. Communicating, it allows us to communicate with our audience. And as I said, it's not just within the club, it's also within the local environments, it's with the community, it's with people who've just moved in, it's people who maybe have moved away and have moved abroad or to college. it's with local journalists, it's with opposing clubs, it's with everybody. So when you're talking, you're not just talking to your club members, you're also talking to potential club members and anybody who acts online, and even people who have no interest in the GAA. They're also online and they're reading it. So it's important as a communications tool. Awareness, it creates awareness, it lets people know where we are, what we're doing, and when. And it's also a great place to promote our achievements. So as promoting, it's prime real estate for promoting your activities, your achievements. Fundraisers, it's great for attracting. It attracts new audiences, new support, and it reaches a much wider potential audience. A source of information, not only for you and your usual audience, but also for journalists and media houses. And engaging, it allows us to engage with our audience, and importantly, it allows them to engage with us and with each other as well. And now, I'm not saying kind of all of this to scare you. These uses are really important. The fact that you've so much reach now and you can talk to people all around the world and they can communicate with each other as well is a really powerful tool to kind of really immerse the club in the community digitally, locally and further afield with those who kind of relate to the club. So moving on to the role of social media channels. So here we'll look a bit closer to the role of social media channels. I'm sure you recognize some of these symbols. If not, you'll know all about them in a moment. So Facebook. So Facebook, what is it? Facebook is the most used and most engaged platform overall. Its audience is split 50-50 male to female users as well. So it's quite a balanced platform, and it's, as I said, it's most used by our audience. So it's a place to create brand loyalties and the formation of communities and their discussions. Particularly during the COVID period, Facebook, which, as I mentioned, is all about the formation of communities and loyalties, it saw a huge increase in their usage as their core identity matched the needs of people who are looking to connect within communities online. So particularly during this time, it's seen quite the increase in usage. Everybody, but mostly 25 to 54-year-olds actively post and join groups. Groups and videos are a particularly large part of Facebook. While a lot of people, you might say, oh, they don't use it anymore. That might be true. People might not actively post on it, but the stats show that people live there. They watch, they consume, they engage, they get news there. So it's still a very active channel to be on. And how? From posts, albums, to Facebook Lives, stories, group pages. There's so many features that can be used to make an impact on audiences. And as you'll see from the list there's so many ways in which you can, target different audience groups within Facebook, which we'll touch on again, later in the slides. So then moving on to Twitter. So Twitter is the leading platform to discuss events, particularly live events, to gather news, and it makes it a prime place to share content and drive discussions, where it's for relatively straightforward and short-term interactions, which makes it great for updates for live events, particularly sporting events. And I'm sure you've all gone on to check the scores and updates for matches on Twitter, so it's a brilliant place for that. Who's on it? Quite a large audience. 65% of the users are 18 to 49-year-olds. So the span of young to kind of, that older side, everybody exists on Twitter. And then when do they use it? As I mentioned, live events, latest news. It's a great place because of the short interactions. It really drives quick discussion. People can go back and forth and engage with each other much easier than any other platform. And then on to YouTube. So YouTube is for all ages. It's a great place to hold a library full of video content. Over 50% of its users are female. It's also a great, and it's all ages, particularly younger, but all ages are on YouTube. It's a really popular platform. It's a great place to store video as well, and to share it across your website. So as I mentioned, how important your website is as your only owned platform. It's very important to maintain that. And YouTube is a great place to store video that you can then also share to your website, and so host it on YouTube and share it across to your website, which is an easy way to kind of update the channel, but also make sure you keep your website updated as well. And then Instagram. So Instagram, and I also have Snapchat and TikTok here, which I will touch on at the end of this slide. Instagram is the prime channel to focus on for sharing photo and video-led content. It's a really popular platform to reach audiences from teens to 35-year-olds. The audience here is quite balanced as well. It's split 51-49 females to males. Instagram has and remains to grow so rapidly, and with strong imagery and video at its core. So when you're posting on Instagram, always think strong imagery and video. So less text heavy, more strong imagery and video. Its ability to adapt as well. So it's added stories following the creation of Snapchat, and it's got IGTV, which kind of competes with YouTube, and now Reels following the creation of TikTok. It's really a prime channel to focus on for that younger audience, and also for sharing the emotive photo and video led content that we have so much of in the GAA. We're very lucky to have so many great photos and imageries and stories. So I mentioned Snapchat and TikTok just there whilst talking about Instagram, and I want to circle back to that. Many of the features on these platforms provide space for, and indeed the audience itself are also on Instagram. So Snapchat, if you're not familiar, it lets users exchange photos and videos called snaps that disappear after they've been viewed. Many of these features are very similar to Instagram stories, which you post vertical images and videos, and they also disappear after 24 hours now with Instagram stories. And TikTok is for creating, sharing, and discovering short videos. It's used by young people as an outlet to express themselves through singing, dancing, comedy, lip syncing, that kind of thing. It allows them to share videos and then share it across the community. And this outlet is very similar to Instagram Reels, which would have a lot of this kind of the same content. So it's the same audience with very similar kind of creative content in this, and Instagram has rapidly adapted to cater for those needs as well. So, all of it is on Instagram, the audience is on Instagram. So I just wanted to touch on why we were, on Instagram versus TikTok and Snapchat. And I'm going to continue on to the next slide to show you this graphic. So I really wanted to show you these results from this survey on online habits by Hootsuite. So this shows the use of social platforms as a source of news. So you'll see here at the top the percentage of the different channels that people said in the survey that they use to discover and access news content. So this is very similar to updates about matches and updates about fundraisers or news in the club. It's quite relatable to where people would get that kind of content. So if you look here, out of the top 5, 4 of them are the channels that we are on, and they are the 4 that wolf everything else in terms of where people go to access news, where people to go to look for updates, which is really what our audience want. They want to engage with us. They want to keep updates on scores, updates on training, updates on news to do with fundraisers. So these channels are really in the prime space for delivering that to their audiences, and more importantly, it's where the audience themselves want to go to consume this kind of content. So it's really important to consider that when you're, looking at which channels, the club will use. So, and then finally, so focus on getting these channels right. So these are the channels that we as a governing body are on. They are our core channels in which our audience lives. And as I mentioned, it's really important to just focus on getting these channels right. These are the channels where people consume the most news content, they look for the most updates on these channels, and they engage with each other more on these channels than any other. So, and it's, as I said, where your audience lives is really important. So and speaking of audience, I'm going to move on to our next slide.
I'm just going to add in a point on that.
Yeah.
The reason as well. Oh, sorry, can you mute for a sec? Sorry.
Oh.
The reason as well that we would encourage you to stick to these 4 is that idea of not spreading yourself too thinly. So you will undoubtedly have people within the club saying, oh, can we not have a Snapchat channel for the club? And it'd be great to be able to say, yeah, now look, it's probably not entirely appropriate either until we work out the regulation a little bit more, but that's not the real main reason either. It's about not spreading yourself too thinly because you are one person or you're only going to be a couple of people. You can't if we can't, as a professional staff, create enough specific information and entertainment to cover more than those 4 channels plus your website, there's not a hope that a club will be able to do it. So don't spread yourself too thin. Don't put yourself in that position. Feel free not to be on all of them, but don't go beyond those 4. That would be my advice. Niamh.
Just before we continue on, actually, so we've 2 questions here, so you might take a look at that before we start.
Well, we'll do all questions at the end if that's okay, so that we know what time that we have. But we will get to your questions, absolutely.
Grant. So on to our audience types. So our audience are vast. They're really, really vast, but they include and not limited to, just to get you thinking of the types of kind of people you'll be speaking to. So internally, that's your club officers, your executive committee and subcommittee members, players, mentors, parents, active members, county committee, provincial council, and then externally, that's like, club members, active and non-active members, the wider community. So those who maybe are interested in joining the club, those who are interested in what the club is doing in the local area, those in schools, those sending their kids to school or potentially looking for a new club, those new to the area, those from the club living outside the locality, parents, sponsors, and media. So moving on then with our audiences, who am I talking to? It is important to define the common needs, interests, and frustrations of your audience. By knowing who you're talking to, you can create a better experience for them and a better end result of communication for you. We're going to take a look at a sample representation of some of the audience that we will be talking to. So this is Emma. Who is she? Emma is a female student, 17 years old. She's a club player who's living at home. Her interests: club news, social events. So that's everything from, is there a club disco to, is there score? Is there, a barbecue before the club match? All sorts of club events, trainings and match details. Her preferred channels: Instagram and YouTube. Given her age, that's where young people are on, Instagram, YouTube. Also, they go to Twitter for live match updates. As I mentioned before, they are on Facebook, but it's generally to look at rather than to post. Their preferred content: video and organic content. Always think less text, more strong imagery. Young people, particularly this Emma, that's how she communicates, is through imagery. Videos, through pictures, through reels, all of that kind of imagery through Instagram and YouTube. That's what they consume. They're less likely to read long form pieces of text. They don't have the same attention span anymore. That's the way they like to consume. And organic content: they like things that feel fresh, that feel normal, that don't feel forced. So that moves on to our frustrations: post with a lot of text and feeling like they've been spoken at. Emma does not like to feel like she's been spoken to. She likes to be engaged with. It's a two-way conversation. She likes to be considered, not spoken directly at. So it's really, important to consider these frustrations when you're creating text. Her preferred channel. So if you're looking to speak to Emma, where are you going to post? Instagram or YouTube? How are you going to say it? You're going to think of the preferred content. She likes video, organic content, and then you're going to consider how, what makes her mad, what's her frustrations. Post with a lot of text, so you reduce the text and feeling like she's been spoken at. You'll make sure your tone of voice, suits the persona that you're looking to direct to. And we're going to move on to our next one. So this is Shane. So here's another example of one of our audience members. Male student, 22 years old, is a club player, lives in the city attending college, maybe comes home for training a couple of times a week, is home at the weekends. He's interested in the club news and the match details. So, when to be home, what to be home for. He's no longer living locally, so he really will rely on the website and the social media channels to keep up to date as to what's happening in the club. He wants to stay connected to the club whilst away in college, and it's your role to make sure that they have the information and the details to be able to do that. So his preferred channels are Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And his preferred content is photos and videos. Prefers short, direct posts. Again, keeping it short, keeping it visual. That's what the younger audience really want nowadays. And it's really important to remember that when you're creating anything or you're driving anything or you're posting for that audience. Frustrations, not finding information quickly. So again, lower attention span, post with no imagery or video. There's so much noise nowadays. If you're looking for that audience, they won't even see it. They're so quick, they're so busy scrolling. It's really important to keep imagery and video with your posts. Keep away from long captions and also fake news. So we all know about fake news, I would imagine, but misleading kind of captions to get people to click into things, or maybe just, you know, captions that aren't direct enough would really frustrate an audience member like Shane. So moving on to Rory, and if I am moving too quickly through these, don't worry, the presentation will be available to you afterwards. So this is Rory. He's a 36-year-old male, club player and volunteer, and he's a big intercounty fan. His interests, again, club updates, social events, and good news stories about the club. He's really into volunteering for the club. A club player wants to see the good work that's been done, get out there, and that people can recognise the good work that the club is doing. That's really important to Rory. His preferred channels are Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So that's because of his age and his involvement locality. 36-year-old males would generally be on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. His preferred content, definitely video, consuming short clips in the club, consuming videos of scores at the county board, things like that, and direct posts that are very informative. He wants to know what's going on when, doesn't want long posts, just wants it very direct. Frustrations, post with broken links. So clicking through to whether it be an article on the website or whether it be a link to a video on YouTube and the link isn't working. Big frustration. Always check links before you post, and never post a link that doesn't directly link back to your own site, or a GA related site. Not being able to find fixture results information, and then not knowing where to get tickets. So it's really important if you've club fixtures coming up, or you're promoting maybe tickets to the bus to a match or tickets to a fundraiser or lotto tickets, that it's very clear as to where this audience can get those and can avail of that. So this is Sheila. So who's Sheila? She's a 47-year-old female. She's a club volunteer and a mother of 2 club players. Her interests are the club notes, the healthy club events that are coming up, training and match details, so training available in the club, within the county board, and training for her kids as well, and match details for their upcoming games for her kids, so that she's aware of what's happening when and she can plan. Very important. County board news, as she's a club volunteer, updates relating to club activities and fundraising activities. Her preferred channels are Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and her preferred content is video and website articles. So frustrations, again, post with broken links, website news, not knowing when her children are training and playing matches. Post with broken links is just a no-no. People like this, volunteering in the club, as club players, they want to know the information, they want to know the information fast. So it's really important when you're getting this information out there that you make sure that everything is correct and easily available to your audience. And this is Michael. So Michael is a 6-year-old male. He's an ex-club player, an ex-selector, and a current committee member. I'm sure we all know people like Michael. He's interested in updates on club activities, meetings, match details. He wants again to hear the good news stories in the club being shared. Michael is a character who has plenty of his own stories, and he only loves to hear extra stories being shared around the club. And also, it's he's a great audience member to even get stories out of. There's plenty of people like Michael who would only be happy to give the club extra content to use and share. And then fundraising for the club. So Michael's always more than happy to help with fundraising for the club, and he wants to make sure that these details about the fundraisers go as far and as wide as possible. His preferred channels are the website and Twitter. His preferred content is informative posts. Michael wants to read all of the information. He wants to get it straight away. Match report articles. So straight after the match, Michael wants to know exactly what was going on, who's playing where, who started, who subbed, all of that. And then local newspapers, GA section. So Michael will get the paper and he'll look for the club notes in the local paper as well. And then frustrations. So when club information isn't available on the club channels, so be that the website and Twitter that he goes on and can't access or doesn't know where it is. And then that leads to managing the switch to digital. Michael is still transitioning from traditional to digital, and that's why it's so important for him that, you know, the club information is clearly on the website and on Twitter so that he can find it a lot easier, and it's easier for him to access it. And it's really important to consider the Michaels when you are putting this content online, because that transition is a bit harder for them. And then things to consider: breaking through the noise. So with the majority of sports and business now using social media, the big question is how do we break through the noise that now exists to reach the people who want to hear us, our audience? You want your message to reach your desired audience. This can have many benefits to the club. And the first and, like, I suppose, easiest way is just to target your audience by knowing who they are, where they exist, and what channels they are on. So these audience members that I have gone through, it's really important to consider them every time that you are putting something out and you want to talk to them. It's what you say and how you say it. Resonate with your followers on each channel. Consider who you're talking to, i.e. who uses each of the channels, and resonate with them there. Even if you're telling the same story, think of the audience types that we just looked at there. Think about how even you would speak to them in person. Would you speak to 17-year-old Emma the same way that you would speak to 47-year-old Sheila? Probably not, or hopefully not. Like, look at the tone of voice that you use and the content that you use, and it can make a huge difference. And it's really important to consider that when trying to break through the noise. So always consider who you want to speak to. So when no matter what you're posting, who is this for? And then decide where you put it and how you put it there. Think of the way that they consume. Is it true in a website article? Is it true a video? And tailor it for the people that you want to talk to. And that's how you can be most successful at communicating your message and breaking through all of the noise that exists there. So I'm going to hand you back to Lisa for the content. I hope that that covered some of the social, and again, you'll have the slides in case I did go through it a bit too quickly for you. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Niamh. Okay, so now you know the where. This is a little bit on the what. So content, as we said, can be anything. It can be videos, photographs, news articles that come from any kind of a source, like an Irish Times piece or something that comes from GAALearning or the county board. Video, whether it's something that you've made yourself or whether it's that you've taken some of the clips that we will post at the weekend and put them up. Content is anything. Lotto results are content. Who won the lotto? What they did with the money? That's all content. No, but everything is content. The key thing for you is just to break it down. Okay, what do I put up? And the way we do it is we break everything down. We think, right, we think match day, we think midweek, and then we think of the other things. So what do I mean by match day? Anything that relates to information that will be useful and entertaining, so both useful and entertaining to people around a match day. Teams, scores, live coverage, match reports, when the bus is leaving, who's going to be where when, all that kind of information is your match day stuff. And what we always try to do is put that out around the time of a match. What I mean by around it is, I mean wrap your match day in this. So a couple of days beforehand, start talking about the match. These are the people who are going to be playing. The bus is leaving at this time. There's a supporters bus leaving. Tickets are going to be X amount. All that kind of stuff. Then on the day itself, you're going to have your scores on Twitter. You'll have your final results probably everywhere. At some point, you'll get to do a match report, which comes after. And that's what I mean by wrapping every match day. So think of it as a start, a middle, and an end to the match day. So it's not just one day; it's a little bit around it. Midweek, so the day-to-day stuff, the training updates, the ticket info about what's going on at the weekend, if there's club lotto, if there's any sort of other stuff going on, that's when you post that. It's a really nice time as well to look at other fixtures that are happening. So if you're in a given county, and you're obviously the club, but you've got people in your club on the panel or who will be playing at the weekend, let people know about it. I'll touch on it a little bit later, but that sense of pride in just because somebody's put on their county jersey doesn't mean that the club should let go. And in fact, it should be the absolute opposite. Hang on to them. Use them as something that's great to promote your club, and there will be so much more about them online because of the fact that they're playing for on the county team, that you'll be able to pull that and put it up on the club site. Big events then, fundraisers, lottos, rallying for support, looking for volunteers, looking for coaches, looking for people to supervise the club disco, whatever it is, whatever your big events are, use your online channels to ask. It's not always just about giving. It's sometimes you're going to need something back from people too, and there's no better place to shout loud and ask for people to support whatever the request is. So what's content and where do I get it? Anything, as I said, can be content. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be a Spielberg style video. It can be a video clip that you shoot. And when I say shoot, I mean take your phone out of your pocket and put on the video. And you get your team captain of a match that's just happened to stand up against the wall of the dressing rooms, outside ideally, and get them to talk about the match and then stick it on Twitter. And then you've just made yourself a match report video. It can be your own man of the match video, however you want to dress it up. That's a really, really quick way to make something great. And as I said, make sure you have permission to use it. That you will have permission by virtue of the fact that he's given you the interview. Where you just need to be careful here is if you are looking at the likes of, say we pick the Irish Times and there's an interview ahead of with a Kilmoyley player ahead of a junior final on Saturday in Croke Park, and you're Kilmoyley GAA and you say, oh, there's a lovely interview with Shane, I'm going to take that and put it on my website, and you scroll across all the writing and you highlight it and you right click copy and then you say, okay, paste over here. You can't do that. If you want to share something that exists already with more people, use the link, the URL link on the article, or else what you could do, and it goes the same for anything that belongs to anybody else, take the first sentence and then say, for more, click here, and put in the link. Same with photographs. Don't just right click and save on a photograph that you see on Sportsfile. Make sure you have purchased it or have an agreement with whoever the photographer is that you can use it. I annoyingly use the analogy of, would you walk into a shop and steal a loaf of bread from somebody? You wouldn't. And that's exactly what it is when people take online content that they haven't created. They don't have the rights to use it. So just be careful that you are using what you should. But as I said, it's so easy to make your own. Now, while it's so easy to make your own, also don't reinvent the wheel. If there's something that exists out there from the county or the province or from us that is useful to you, just ask for it. Ask for it, or click share or retweet or repost it yourself. There's so much great information that's already done, and it will save you so much time rather than having to go out and, if there's a perfectly good match report that, you come out the good guy in, share it. Don't rewrite it, share it. The same goes for everything else, for anything else. If another team has good pictures of your team, share them. You know, it's a time efficient, cheaper way to do things. If you are feeling a little bit more adventurous, you can absolutely make your own content. If you're thinking about, you see nice graphics and you're thinking, I'd like to make a nice picture to promote an upcoming fixture or to promote training, there's lots of really easy ways to do it. And they're easy, but they can come out looking really professional. There's a platform called Canva. It's an app on your phone, or you can get it on your computer. It's what we use for a lot of our stuff, not everything, but a lot of it. And we have some demos on how to kind of get yourself started with it too, so we can get those demos to you as well. Again, not a must by any means, and the intention of telling you about that is not to take time from you. It's, if you are interested in going that route, this is a way to actually, I guess, be a little bit more efficient with your time and to save you some time, because there's a lot of great ideas already within Canva that you can take, and you don't need permission for them. So when you are going about making your own content, you can be smart about it. As we said, it's important to speak to your audiences within the locations that they are, but you can tell the same story. And you'll see here the top 3 articles across are from the GAA website, and it's a really lovely website. If you've never been on it, worth a look. But you'll see in the first article there, so if you were to click into that, you would be able to read a long article about the club linking with a community partner. Now, below that, you'll see Twitter. They've taken that news story and they've put it on Twitter. They haven't written the full story again on Twitter, but they've used the same photograph, and they've, as you'll see there, there's a little bit of text at the top, and then they have a link to the full article. So it's as easy as that. It's not about having to be, laborious and start typing out the whole article again in a social media post. That's the opposite of what you need to do. But it's the same story. So it's not like you need to have a whole new collection of information and content and stories and pictures and whatever for every single channel that you're on. You don't. It's just about using them wisely. On the right then, you'll see that GAALearning are on Instagram, and in this post here, they're talking about some fundraising that the club has been doing. Now, they didn't post a stash of cash as their photo. They're talking about celebrating hitting a milestone in their fundraising journey, and they've used a really lovely picture from the club. Nothing to do with the actual fundraising, but it's exciting and it's lovely. And that's creating content. That's doing it yourself. That is celebrating what your club has, what your club is, what your community is. And I just think that's a great way to do it, rather than thinking, what's the obvious thing to put up here. Let's go a little bit not so obvious, but a way that's very much our own. So your county or your provincial accounts will have, again, as I said, so much that you can share, that you can borrow from. If you look at the Armagh website, it's a great spot to go if you're looking for an easy way to promote, county fixtures that, again, you might have some panel members and team members of in the club. You want to support them. It's, we're all the one community. It's just a different stem. So there's always going to be lots of fixtures and news reports, etc., etc. When it comes to news reports, actually, if there's somebody within your club ever mentioned in a news report or a match report that's been posted on the county board website, take it and say, doesn't Shane's Blank get a really great write-up here or here's a report from his great performance of the weekend or whatever, but pick them out and use it. So again, you're making it specific to your club, but you're taking the actual full piece of content from somewhere else. So it's tailoring, just being smart about it. Our GAA Twitter, you'll see below there. they, you know, like I said, you can't be in all places at all times. And if there's something that's happening at a county level that's interesting to your members, just hit retweet. So you don't have to retweet every single score report, but look at that top one there, you know, the full-time result. Hit retweet. Easy, done, and something else that's on your feed. On the right-hand side, you'll see a graphic. These are the kind of things that are great. So something like this could well have been done on Canva, like I mentioned, but if you speak with your county PRO, they will be more than willing to share with you the graphics that they make to either promote matches or promote players or results or anything like that. So while you can always reshare, you can ask them directly as well. Do you mind sending that on to me? We do it with the county PROs, where when you are in your email address, you'll notice that you have access to something called OneDrive. And that's essentially just a big folder that everybody has access to. And what your county PRO will be able to do will be just to make a folder that they can stick everything into it, and all of you will be able to have access to it. So that's a great way to get access to it, but always feel free to put up your hand and say, sorry, can I get that the next time you're sending them out, or do you mind sending them on to me because they're really good. Now, the Big Bad GAA also has lots for you. And I didn't want to focus so much here now on, you know, showing you match results as much as, you know, we do a lot more and we speak a lot more than about just inter-county senior level games. If you go onto our website, you'll see that there's an absolute wealth of information that is so much more club and community focused than you might have realized, and the same goes for across our social channels as well. Match reports from club championship matches in abundance during the year, not just at the latter stages. There's plenty of them from the stages before we get to the likes of this weekend. So feel free to share them. Take the first line and then stick a link into the read the rest, and that's there for you. That match report's done. You'll see that we will promote initiatives from the GAA across all of our channels. So the likes of the Healthy Club recruitment campaign that was run at the start or at the end of last year. That kind of stuff is relevant to clubs, and it's something that you can absolutely take, not just get involved in, but you can promote amongst your clubs. The same with Ireland Lights Up, we're doing so much promotion of that. Your club may already be involved in it, but if you're involved in these things, don't feel like you're a bit of an island in it. We're likely supporting you too. So jump on and always ask the question if you don't see something, and we'll tell you if we're on board or not. But if there's something like that, feel free to take it and to share it directly on your own channels. The article at the top, on the top right, is just another example of how, you know, there's so much more to the GAA than just what happens on a pitch. Sometimes great and sometimes tragic, and there is, I have to say, a really lovely way in which our journalists will cover the realities of what happens within our club communities very regularly. So bringing awareness to the likes of suicides, depression, you know, all of these kind of real topics that happen within our clubs, which are microcosms of the greater population of our communities. But they'll really resonate with members because they're about real people. So I really do encourage you, if you see them, that we're posting them on our channels, share them, take them and use them as your own in that way. And then back to the snazzy stuff. You know, if Jimmy Hyland's in your club and you see this point being posted on our channels with the video, share it. It's yours. It's a really, as I said, a great way to promote your club through the prism of the county and the performance of the players that you have molded into the players that they are now. So that's all, but it's not everything. This was very much dipping your toes in the, in the proverbial water of all things digital within the remit of the PRO, or the anointed ones, as we said. What I can only suggest is that you take your time and you find your feet. You've got a long time in this role. So, you know, it's, to use another awful analogy, it's a marathon, not a sprint, but it really is. It's about getting into a rhythm, and absolutely start with enthusiasm and vigor, but do so in such a way that you don't get yourself into bad habits. And what I mean by bad habits are overextending yourself, committing to too much, and burning out before your role is up for election again. Now, we will absolutely offer more information and more detailed information in the areas that we feel are important, and we already have some on that. But also, what we'd love to do is gather from you all the key areas that you felt you'd like to know more about within this module. And what we'll do is, as I said about the idea with a OneDrive file, we'll add everything to a central location that you can all access, and we will update that with everything that you would like to know. So think of it as an embellished FAQ section. We'll put all the information that you've asked for and all the Q&As that come in through that and that we don't get to cover now into that section, as well as any other additional little training modules that we have on the likes of Canva, etc. So I wanted to leave you on the note of, we will have Q&As after this, don't worry, but a little bit of a nice ending note that I think shows the GAA and what we all do for what it is. So I do hope you enjoy.
Sorry, Lisa, I don't think the sound is synced in.
Oh, oh no. Why is that now? No. Okay, everybody. Looks like you're going to be getting a video in the OneDrive inbox as well. Sorry about that. I'll send you all the link to it. It's really, as I said, not just because we made it ourselves, but it's a really lovely video, and stick it across all your channels as well. It's just a little reset and reminder to people what it is they're involved in, because you know we're so much bigger than, we're greater than some of our parts. There you go, another awful analogy. We have some time, so I guess what we can do is we'll take a few questions from the floor. Now, if you do want to ask a question, just either type it into the text box, or if we run out of questions there, just click the hand sticky up signal, and we can go from there. So I'm just going to stop sharing. All right, my friends. I presume I've stopped sharing here. Correct?
Yes.
Lovely. Okay. First question from Ballinrobe. Yes, it will, my friend. This presentation will be available. We'll share it with everybody, so you can download it, not just watch it online again. Second question on WhatsApp. Sorry, I'm just going to also caveat this Q&A session with, if there's anything I can't give you enough information on now, I will get that to you as an FAQ. So there's some elements potentially that might come up around, say, broadcast or the legal element of things. If they do come up, I won't do anyone a service, and we'll get you that information properly afterwards. Maybe you might keep track of anything like that if it does come up.
Yeah.
So an alternative to WhatsApp, it's a tricky one. So within the GAA app, which I don't know if you have downloaded yet and tried, but there is messaging functionality within that. It's not WhatsApp. It's not perfect yet either, and there's a lot of people working on it within the IT department to make it more perfect, but unfortunately we don't have the budgets that the likes of WhatsApps of the world do. So an alternative that would be compliant in terms of GDPR is text messaging. Text messaging is absolutely fine, and I think, you know, when we set out to create free messaging for people, it was at a time when a text message cost 25 cents for 180 characters, which could have meant that your text message was €1 by the time you finished it, and then you have to send it to everybody. Thankfully now most text messaging is free. So if you're looking for a compliant alternative to WhatsApp, text messaging, also email. But as I said, I'll caveat that by saying they're not WhatsApp, and we all know WhatsApp is great. So do clubs and the GA have access to stock images that we can use in communications? So the answer to this is yes and no. We have a contract with Sportsfile, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. County boards in some instances have contracts with Sportsfile. So this comes back to your loaf of bread. Do you get a slice of the loaf of bread if the county board hasn't paid for it? You don't. But it's an interesting point in the idea of being able to have even just a few stock images. Now, they probably won't be as you would like in terms of if they're of your club. But we can certainly look at making some, you know, pitch images and some of the more artistic images that are not obviously a specific club available to people. So leave that with us and let us have a conversation around that. Do many clubs still use hard copy news sheets? I don't know the answer to that because everything that we're doing is online. That might be something that what we can do is we can put that within the FAQs and have almost like an opportunity for you to discuss it with amongst yourselves and give your opinions about what you're doing. Because I could obviously say to you, you know, no, it's a really bad idea, don't do it, save all your money, put everything online. But that doesn't suit everybody all the time either. So I would imagine that an awful lot less are, but demographics within different areas may often dictate the answer to that too.
And just to cut to type our supposed to get in. If your local paper has a note section, a club note section, or if your local paper does report on the clubs, and there is kind of a, like I know a guy I'm from Monaghan, and the Northern Standard would have a club section, so kind of a lot of like weekly updates and weekly news would go into that. So that would be where people who are looking for printouts could get the kind of the quick information will be from the club notes that go into the paper. So if you can get a kind of a relationship with your most local paper, if they have a club section, then that will be where you could direct them towards that perhaps instead.
Thank you, Niamh. Is there means of communicating safely with board and open underage groups, their parents? So yes, thank you for adding in parents at the end there, because certainly not with the kids themselves. This comes back again to, as I said, ideally not WhatsApp. Text message, email, the best way, the safest way to do it. When it comes to the likes of negative comments, so the social media guidelines are really important for you to read. What we would always suggest within the likes of Facebook, you can turn off people's abilities either to start threads, which we always encourage that you do. So that means they can only comment on existing stuff that's there. You can also set up a list of words that every time somebody types them, it means that when they click post, their comment never appears. So you can make that as broad and wide as you need to, and all of that kind of information we can send you in the general direction of it. But the likes of Facebook and their how-to guides are really good, and that's what we'll be directing you to, because nobody does it better than they do it themselves. But that is very possible to do. Now, in terms of if you're having a specific issue, that's where I would say forget your go-to guides, go to your county PRO or come to us, because we've seen them and experienced them, and they have the potential to get pretty nasty pretty quick, and can happen for all sorts of reasons, and motives can be different, and they can spiral. So we can certainly help you, and your county PRO can certainly help you nip it in the bud as fast as can be. I presume the comment on the stronger internet connection was around my volume. I don't know what's happening here, but at least you'll get a video in your goodie bag on the way home. Safeguarding the club when streaming games. Okay, so the streaming of games is a tricky one, because you may or may not be supposed to be streaming in the first place. So what I'm going to do there is get some information or direct you to Noel Quinn, who looks after all of our media rights, just in terms of what should and shouldn't be streamed. He actually did just send a circular out during the week on it. I'll send it on to you after this. The safeguarding bit wouldn't be covered within it, and I guess that's where it comes to getting permissions. So Grotham Waverhill looks after all of our child safeguarding information, and he will be able to direct you specifically on the, within the membership form, there is an element that will ask you to allow permission for your child's photograph or imagery to be used within the club. Now, it gets very, very tricky in the instance where one parent on a team says, I don't want my child's imagery being used, and you want to make a video. So in those instances, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I would suggest absolutely talking to GAALearning on it, because it might be something that a parent might decide, oh, actually, I am comfortable because I know it's not going somewhere, or there might be another reason around it. So GAALearning is the best one to get advice on that, because he will have dealt with that in the past. So although I can share GA socials, is there a problem with taking a screenshot of perhaps a county player that's used it? And okay, this isn't quite loaf of bread territory, but what we would always encourage you to do would be just to share something as it exists, because if you get into, so if you see something that you like, but you only like a little bit of it, so you screenshot it and you crop it and you make it that way, and that you then may just end up with the piece of information that you're not allowed to have, i.e. photo. Now, if it was the likes of a player of the week graphic, we wouldn't have any issue with you screenshotting and cropping it and posting that again. That's not an issue. But just make sure that wherever you are screenshotting from is an okay place to do it. We're not going to come down your necks on screenshotting, and I won't be sending Niamh after you, don't worry. If you want to screenshot something that you see on the main GA accounts, that is absolutely fine. Just don't, if it was, say, a news article, don't copy it and repost it, but everything else is grand. Where will you find the files? Going to be very difficult. No, it's not. You will get an email when you get access to a OneDrive folder, and all you'll have to do is click it and everything will be there. So that will come to your email. Owen Breslin, if you have the answer to your own question, I would love to know it. So what can be done about fake streamers and people saying, click this link to watch whatever match is on at the weekend, and it's God knows what's on the other end of the link. I have spent a lot of time speaking with Facebook mostly, which are also Instagram and Twitter as well. Slightly less so because it hasn't been as prevalent there, but they themselves can't keep up. So this is what they've told me. They can't keep up with the amount that this is happening. They did try to go a little bit stronger on it in a GA context last summer and gave lots of suggestions for the county boards to try. And I don't think it made any difference, to be perfectly honest. So again, this kind of comes back to the sense that, the more you can push people to your website, the better, because when Facebook themselves can't control their own house, you're into kind of messy water. We don't have any influence or sway over Facebook, despite the fact we have probably 1 million people across the whole GA community using Facebook for GA reasons. No, they're just not able to keep track of it, and we don't seem to be a priority to them. Sorry, this is not me speaking out of turn. I've said this directly to them as well. So it's nigh on impossible, I would say, to crack down on it until they come up with a way or a code or something that just wipes them all out. We'll be keeping an eye on it and seeing is there any change, and if we find out anything that can be done from an individual club's perspective, we'll certainly be letting you know, but we haven't gotten there yet, unfortunately. Often when we advertise fixtures on social media, particularly, oh yes, so yeah, same point. And they're so smart. They're absolutely, because sure, they wouldn't be doing it if somebody wasn't falling for it. Because I always, I'll say, don't click on it. And people say, oh, sure, nobody clicks on those things. They do, because if they weren't clicking on them, they wouldn't still be posting them. So there is somebody clicking on them. What we actually did do last year and the year before was ask the counties, and no harm in you guys doing it ahead of a match weekend, saying, please do not click on any links that you see about streaming, because there is no stream, or it is only going to be streamed on this account or this channel, or RTE or whatever. So maybe through our own actions and our own the awareness we create ourselves, we'll be able to help in that. But they won't, I don't know why, but somehow they just can't do anything.
Definitely reporting and blocking them is definitely the way to go at the moment, for sure. Keep at it, even though it is tedious. Keep at it, because a lot of them, particularly, it started with Instagram recently, that they also block any new account that they create. So there's, it's not ideal, but it's kind of the only way to keep going with it, to try and reduce the number of them, underneath your comments.
Yeah, and I think Niamh touched on there, it's tedious. I remember one weekend, one of the county PROs saying, I spent the whole match just blocking links. And that makes you feel like you're fighting a losing battle, I have to say. It's almost become like those fake phone calls that you get from the different numbers, like they just keep on looping around. Sorry, Canva being on Mac. I don't think I said it was on Mac, but I'm sure it is. It's on desktop or on your phone. So of course you will be able to use it on a Mac, absolutely. But there's a little app that you can download for it, and you can do loads on your phone, and it's nearly as good as it is as good. And what it means is, if you have a style that you like, in 2 seconds, if you have it saved, you can have a half-time and a full-time match result made by just typing it. So you can have whatever style set up for it and do your little update of just the text, and it means it's no more effort than writing it in a tweet, but you have a nice graphic and you can use that everywhere in one go. I guess an awful lot of that and what we've said is like it just comes with time. So don't feel like, don't feel swamped by anything that you've learned tonight. You're thinking, oh, well, the club is only on Facebook and Twitter, and we haven't gone on to Instagram, and don't even talk to me about YouTube because I don't know what to put on it. don't feel like you need to go away tonight and be on all those channels and be making videos and churning out graphics left, right, and center and writing match reports in your sleep. You absolutely don't. Take your time, and you will get into your groove with this. You know, it's the same as starting any new job or role. You'll find your feet. You'll get there, and but just really enjoy it, because, as we said at the start, this is a lovely part of the GAA world to be involved in, and it's the most exciting. It's, you know, it changes as fast as a score in a hurling match. But it's brilliant, and it should be that exciting too. What's the name of the app that can be used on the phone? Canva. So if you look at the message just above there, Canva. Do you know what? It's also really great. So I'm just throwing stuff out there now as I think of it. If you make something on Instagram, so like a photo, and you add in some, you know, writing above it, or text, or little drawings, or GIFs, or anything on top of it, you can download that and you can put it somewhere else as well. So if you spend a bit of time doing something in one location, you'll likely be able to use it elsewhere as well. So if you don't want to, you know, say if you happen to like making Instagram story posts, you can download them and put them into different places, or you can crop them as well. So make it so that you know that you want it to work everywhere. You'll come up with these little ways, little shortcuts, because Niamh and I are the queens of shortcuts these days.
Yeah. And like that, the more you do, the easier it gets. You know, and that's it. It's just doing, and as you do, you learn quicker ways of doing things. Or like every day is a school day, you learn that there's a fast way of doing something, or the app has updated and they've made it easier, because that's what they're constantly doing. They're trying to make it easier for you to stay on the app for longer. So you'll find that there'll be changes that makes your life easier, and the more you do it, the easier it'll get, for sure.
Does anybody else have a question? No? Great. Oh, so we really wouldn't get through everything. So to recap, we will share the presentation with you. We will share the social media guidelines and the one-pager. And anything else that we can think of that will be useful for you to look at, to have at your disposal. There will be no exam, anything like that. You know, look at these things as they suit you, when you have time. Use them if you want, dump them if you want. But never be afraid to ask a question, whether it's to each other, or to the County Bureau, or to us. That's what we're all here for. And over time, as I said, we will be running more detailed courses, so we hope absolutely to see you on them as well, and that you're all bringing loads of examples and ideas to the table, and hopefully it'll be in real life as well. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a million, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is everybody getting all the lever notifications to their phones?
Yeah.